All right, so I think that's pretty much it from me. How's Alex doing? Are you feeling ready for the product and engineering alpha, Alex?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, let's just jump on into it. Want to give an update as promised, but know that we've got some more exciting parts here later in the call. So as we've been discussing the past couple of weeks, what we're doing here is we're building a rocket. We've got all the pieces developed independently, tested them in the lab, the engine, the fuselage, etc. And now we're at the part where we're putting it all together and making sure that this thing can blast off. So a little bit of what we've been working on specifically the last couple of weeks, kind of continuing the same theme of before, where as we put this together, we identify either additional things that we can improve or things that weren't quite working together perfectly and just need to be adjusted so that everything flows smoothly. One of the things we spent a lot of time on the past couple of weeks was really refining our process for the wallet unlock and users deposits. So if you think about the first interaction with everyone on the exchange is connecting a wallet and getting funds into the platform. And we want to make this as simple as possible. So we've got a one signature process that allows you to unlock and create a delegated key. A reminder that the delegated key is what makes it so you don't have to touch your hardware or software wallet again. So you won't have to worry about signing MetaMask pop-ups every time you place an order. It's going to be a smooth, slick experience, just like trading on a centralized exchange. Of course, the important part being that it's actually backed by your own private key for custody. And the second piece is one signature cross-chain deposits. So we shared a little teaser of what that confirmation screen is going to look like. But the basic idea is that regardless of where you are in the EVM ecosystem, whether that's ETH L1, any of the various EVM chains, you'll be able to do one single transaction, deposit funds into the IDEX platform and get off and running. So really about smoothing over that UX and wowing users when they first come to the platform for the first time. A few other continual updates. So smart contracts, we're proud to say we finalized all changes based on the audits. We've implemented them from the contract level all the way up to the application, and we now have the new version of the application deployed in our dev environment for continued testing. Those changes are under review by auditors. Expect to get sign off here any day now, which is going to be awesome because we can put a pin in the smart contracts and really focus on the remaining parts that act on top of them. And then a few other things. So we did a bit of a refactor in our code in order to remove a lot of logic related to tokens, given that we are going to be collateralizing the Perps platform with USDC, with the stablecoin deposits. We no longer need a lot of logic that was built to handle tens, hundreds, thousands of different tokens being on the platform. So we were able to really simplify and streamline a lot of parts of the application, which is reducing complexity and is going to pay dividends down the line. And then lastly, we spent quite a bit of time looking into and designing and implementing exchange controls. So for example, this includes a disaster recovery plan. Our primary deployment, let's assume that goes offline, the region that's hosting the primary version of the exchange. How do we get that up and running ASAP in a matter of seconds or minutes rather than hours? Especially with something like a Perps platform where you're ingesting external pricing and that determines things like margin and liquidation. It's extremely important that we have continuous operations, and we want to be prepared for those scenarios ahead of time rather than being caught flat-footed after launch. So, wanted to share that one as I think it's just a bit of an insight into how we think about the balance between getting to market as quickly as possible, but also ensuring that if there are any hiccups, and you can expect many of these things at some point in the future, that we're prepared for them to make sure that most of all, customers and customer funds and positions are safe. And that's it for my update.
Sick. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Good.
All right. Well, I hope everybody got all the alpha that they were looking for because, Alex always has the goods. So, yeah, moving on to the next section, we have Ansem and Viktor. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
So.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very excited for this part. So just a little bit of heads up about what's going to happen here. Ansem basically has the floor to ask and talk about whatever he wants to talk about, and Viktor is going to field those questions. So take it away, guys. All yours.
Yeah, so I guess before we start off, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit for those who don't know, although I'm sure many do. And then, I guess if you have any questions about IDEX, we can roll into those. But beyond that, I want to just chat a little bit about the broader market. And kind of the theme of the day is, what's happening to centralized exchanges and do we think there's going to be some sort of migration or flow to decentralized exchanges? Is this finally the last straw? or are there still like, is there still some life or vitality left in them?
Cool. Yeah, I'll give short background. So I've been in crypto since like 2017. Used to be a software engineer, full-time trader now, but yeah, touched first cycle, 2017, 2018, didn't know what I was doing, made and lost a lot of money. 2020, 2021, made more money, kind of knew what I was doing. That's when I got most of my followers just from like posting trades and stuff on Twitter. Basically traded everything that moved, whether it be on-chain stuff, like GameFi stuff, perps, spot, like
You
basically
got me into
everything.
DeFi kingdoms.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on
Yeah,
when I got
we'll
you into
leave the
DeFi
conclusion out.
kingdoms.
We'll just
But
leave it there. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully you sold at 20. But yeah, I mean that's basically me. Been in crypto for a minute. Yeah, very active on Twitter and then like most of the crypto communities. Yeah, so I can give some questions on IDEX. I think you guys have some of like the strongest socials that I've seen like out of the DEX platforms. Can you talk a little bit about what the difference is between like V1, V2, V3? Because I know there's a ton of different versions and IDEX has been around for like a good minute. Can you just speak a little bit to that and kind of like the progression there?
Yeah, man, I'd love to. I think given that Alex has been here since day one, he'll probably be best positioned to answer that and probably give a little bit more context into the history of IDEX. I think it's a great question.
Yeah, happy to take that. So fundamentally, since we launched in fall of 2017, we've had this idea of a hybrid order book exchange. The premise being that order books are the natural way that most trading occurs, whether that's in crypto or in traditional markets, but that blockchains themselves are not an ideal place to operate that order book because of things like latency, high cost, front running an MVV, et cetera. So we came to market with this hybrid design, which allowed us to have the performance, throughput, et cetera, of an order book off-chain combined with smart contracts for custody and settlement. And we had a lot of success with that early on. You may have remembered us from kind of overtaking Ether Delta in the early days. And we really kind of doubled down and pushed forward on this vision. And so a lot of the development that we've been doing across V2, V3 has really been about improving that UX, improving that performance, and making it suitable for both pro traders and market makers to integrate with and trade in. Now, at the same time, kind of behind the scenes, you had the rise of the Uniswaps and liquidity pools, which we realize in hindsight were really tailor-made for launching new tokens. So we spent a lot of time and emphasis on making it good for market makers and pro traders. However, the focus of DEXes has historically been on long tail assets. And if you're launching a new pool, a new liquidity pool on Uniswap, market makers aren't part of that equation. You're really just like getting the community involved, maybe the team, in order to dump some liquidity in the pool, let price discovery have its way. And then if it gets to a certain level of activity, volume, et cetera, then it kind of migrates to an order book environment. So we found ourselves kind of stuck in the middle where we had this really performant, really great trading experience, but it wasn't well served focusing on the spot market side. And that's what we've been focused on with doing with the upcoming version here, is bringing in the concept of leverage through perpetuals. And there's a couple of cool things that come from that. One, it really utilizes this infrastructure that we've been building over this last 5 years. So, one thing that we think we'll have above the competition is, you could say, oh, well, we've been working to develop the perps platform for the last approximately 10 to 12 months, but actually it's building on the shoulders of a platform that we've been working on for the last 5 years. So it's not going to feel like an MVP when it comes to market, because it's going to have all of these other pieces that it can build on top of and borrow from. Other cool things about perpetuals, you don't have to worry about things like inventory because you're using Oracle pricing rather than spot deposits of assets. So it really allows us to open up and have parity with centralized exchanges by trading not just ETH and ETH denominated or ETH kind of native tokens, but also all of the other majors that live on other blockchains. And kind of one way in summary that I'll kind of close here is we've been working on this off-chain infrastructure to match centralized exchange parity, and now we finally see the non-custodial piece, the on-chain components, catching up in terms of throughput and costs, that we can really realize this vision of having an exchange that matches centralized exchanges without having to give up the security benefits of DEXes.
Awesome, man. That's great context. I don't think most people realize that IDEX has been around since 2017.
It's comeback
season. That's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good context for people to have. So just generally, I guess that with the hybrid off-chain, on-chain market like structure, I know the DEX trade has been very popular like the past year with everybody, like the issues that we have with FTX and centralized exchanges, like GMX, obviously. But how do you guys think you compare to exchanges that are purely on-chain? And do you think like the end state for the end state for DEX is going to be, you're going to need to do things off-chain just to be as performant as places like Binance or like other exchanges? Or do you think you're going to, like, how do you outcompete GMX that like has a decent user base now, but like how do you outcompete them?
Yeah, I think that's a dope question too. Like ultimately, I think that the current on-chain only DEXs have like a very specific use case, right? Like given GMX's OI caps, their ridiculous like fee structure, like it's really only for swing traders or like people that are interested in the extreme DeFi spectrum of things, or they're interested through like the GLP mechanism, right? Like realistically, I think the majority of people doing volume as even like retail, like pro-am traders don't really trade that way, right? I think they prefer to have things like limit orders and being able to scale in and not pay, 10 basis points per side, which is pretty insane. So I think I think that's one thing. The other thing that I think GMX really struggles with, and I think for a while on-chain, like completely on-chain platforms will struggle with this, is like performance, right? It's very hard to build an industry standard API that can do, tens of thousands of orders per second and like have a matching engine that's able to really have that go through. Like it's impossible to really decentralize that right now, I think, with the current blockchain technology. And so basically, I think my opinion is that for now, the best solution we have to market is a hybrid design because it really allows us to have parity with centralized exchanges, which is, I think, is the most important part to get some of those centralized exchange traders over to like the DeFi side and the decentralized side, right? Like I think for a long time we've been able to carve out a niche, I think, with platforms like GMX and like before that platforms like Uniswap and SushiSwap, but it never really, I think, hit the critical mass until like meme coins and stuff. And I think now that narrative is slowing down because the bear market is in full effect, I think a lot of those traders are trying to become more interested in financial markets and like how to trade them. And I think their natural next step, as it was for me when I first started out, is like going from spot to trying to trade derivatives and like trying to learn how to trade seriously. You probably pull up like crypto creds courses or videos. And so like I think capturing that moment for us is super critical because they basically choose a centralized exchange or a DEX at that moment, right? And like I think for a while they'll be kind of loyal to it until there's like this critical shift in sentiment. And so for us, having parity with centralized exchanges is like the number one thing because I think that will really shift the tides for the entire space. And so that's why I think like being fully on chain just doesn't have that capability. Now I think later on it's possible that we finally reach the stage where like you can have everything on chain and it'll be fast, and it probably will have something to do with like off-chain data availability and like using that to speed up transactions and make them both faster and cheaper. But yeah, for the time being, I think basically a hybrid solution is really the only way that you're able to offer a trading experience that's good enough to capture enough both retail and institutional traders.
Yeah, and I just want to add a couple of comments on that. So if we think about the last year, everyone's getting spooked because of the custody risk of centralized exchanges, right? And you see it with the latest regulatory actions where there's a bunch of tweets going out and get your funds off now, they're going to be frozen, they're going to be seized, etc. That cannot happen in a hybrid non-custodial design, right? That's like the number one thing is your funds can't be taken, exactly. You can't be locked out. Even if you go into a coma for 5 years in return and IDEX is no more, you can come and get your money back. And that's a very powerful concept and I think addresses the biggest concern and fear in the market. To your point about on-chain versus off-chain, I know you're a big Solana guy, and I think that Solana actually shows kind of the pinnacle of what's possible through an on-chain trading experience right now. And I think one of the things that stands out to me, and when we talk to market makers about their experience with Serum, they'll kind of echo this. The throughput is kind of acceptable for an application that's running at this scale. You can get tens of thousands of transactions per second, which is kind of the level of scale you need for an exchange. However, you still have costs associated with placing and canceling orders. Those cancellations and placement fees start to add up. And then another like less talked about thing is you have the form of MEV via Solana validators who, if they are also market making, get first look and whether or not they actually process those placement and order placements and cancellations of other parties. So in some ways, decentralizing the matching process actually makes it less fair because you can't adhere to the kind of time-honored rules of what's known as price time priority, which just means if you're there first with the best price, you get the order and someone else doesn't. So it's actually in some ways and kind of against the wishes or desires of the traders, market makers, et cetera, on the platform to have that particular component decentralized.
Both great answers. Yeah, I definitely agree that the biggest point is that like what's the word? Like that custodial risk that people are taking on with centralized exchanges. That's the biggest like upside to having a hybrid structure where you still get the speed, but you still like are able to like own your funds.
100%.
So I think that's huge. And yeah, I'm a big Solana guy. Even the Solana, currently there's an exchange like something similar to Solana on like the hybrid thing, like very early stage. But I think that it's trending in that direction, the hybrid direction. I guess last question, like how are you guys thinking about incentivizing traders to use IDEX and also like market makers? Because I know the biggest thing I think for these guys who are on CEXes is there's just so much liquidity in Binance. That's where all the liquidity is. So that's like a big hump, I think, to get over for a lot of these newer DEXes. So how are you guys thinking about competing on like the liquidity side and just bringing traders over and like also market makers?
For sure, yeah. I'll touch a little bit from my side and then I'll let Alex chime in as well. But to summarize, essentially it's a chicken and egg problem, and I think we've been able to, in some sense, solve it by having initiatives that tap into both sides. So the first thing is on the retail side, which is really going to be, I think, the bulk of the taker volume initially. So getting CT to trade, which is why we keep posting horny memes as opposed to trying to post any sort of pretty charts or graphs. Right? We're really trying to align with the community because we know those are the degenerates that are going to be trading with me on day one. Right? I'll probably be losing money to them. And so like aligning with them was the first step. And I think now we're crafting a lot of incentives that I think will align with, I think, the type of traders that those people are, because I'm one of them, right? So we have things like maker rebates. We have some things around airdrops and first trade bonuses. We have trading rewards that's kind of similar to DYDX. And then we have a bunch of things that are more kind of time-based and limited based. So there'll probably be some things related to NFTs. And then ultimately on the market maker side, Alex can touch a little bit more on some of the back-end things. But essentially, we have relationships with market makers that I think will provide really good liquidity in the beginning, especially for launch. And then I think as the platform grows, I think they'll also be happy to commit more liquidity. And eventually, we also have a more automated system to incentivize liquidity, which Alex could touch on a little bit.
Yeah, so Victor's kind of responsible for handling the marketing and user acquisition side of getting people to the platform. And really for me, a lot of my focus is on thinking about what is that product experience when they get there. Because I actually think it's frankly not that hard to get people in crypto to try your product. People are hungry. They're interested in trying out new things. The airdrop narrative has really made it so that people are willing to try out new products and understand that there's a lot of kind of edge and alpha to be had there. The question is, how do you get them to stay once they show up? And so that's really been our focus. And on the market maker side, it's about making an API that is as performant and kind of adheres to the standards that they're used to on the centralized exchange side. So if you think about market makers deciding whether or not they're going to integrate, it's basically an equation of how much can I earn versus how much this is going to cost. And a big piece of that cost up front is the integration time and resources. So the easier you can make that, the more you can lower that friction, the more market makers you'll be able to onboard, and the better your liquidity will be. And then similarly on the taker side, Victor talked about a bunch of the ideas we have, including kind of aligning ourselves with the community, showing that we are indeed from 2017. We understand the space and are kind of a part of it ourselves to drive people to the platform, but they're not going to stay if it's not a good trading experience. And so that really comes down to kind of our emphasis on the small details, really making it at parity with centralized exchanges so that when you trade on it for the first time, you kind of have that wow factor of like, this is the DEX I've been waiting for and I've been looking for.
Sick, man. Yeah, sick. Think you guys have a good plan and good product coming up. So cool.
I appreciate
I
it.
don't know if
Thank you.
y'all have questions for
No, I
me.
have a lot. I mean, I have a whole fucking list. But let's I appreciate the questions. I appreciate you giving us a chance to show IDEX here a little bit. Obviously, we're very biased, but I think that once the product is released, people will see that the memes were not just dreams. And I'm really, really excited for you guys to get your hands on it. So yeah, I think getting straight into it, like, what are your kind of feelings around centralized exchanges now, and like how bullish or bearish are you on this idea that we'll slowly transition to having more and more trading happening on perpetual DEXs?
I think the shift is going to continue to happen towards DEXs, honestly. I think you've seen it this year, like the percentage, like if you look at the percentage of trades that have been done on DEXs, I think this year in the past several months has been like trending up. And I think that's going to continue to happen mostly for two reasons. I think on-chain is way better for retail in terms of the competitive advantage that you have over like larger entities and like funds, just like your advantage to be a degenerate on chain and on DEXs, you kind of have a huge advantage there. And then also, as you guys know, we had stuff like FTX, we've had stuff like GOX, we've had all of these exchanges that continuously over and over show that they aren't equipped to really manage user funds in a reliable way without committing fraud of some sort or doing something crazy. So I think obviously the hybrid is kind of like the end state of DEXs and CEXes, like the best version of both. And I think it's going to just continue to happen and trend in that direction, especially as more people come into crypto. Because CEXes, like centralized exchanges, they're like crypto. They're like the main gateway to crypto, but they're not really representative of the crypto ethos.
Yeah, I think they've become more and more like on-ramps and off-ramps.
Right, and I think they'll continue to be on-ramps, like the main on-ramps. But I just think a lot of the trading activity it's not going to all move to DEXs, obviously. But I do think it's going to continue to trend in that direction, especially as more of these exchanges are close to as performant as Binance and others.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah, like, I mean, Alex one day asked me for an elevator pitch for IDEX, and I'm like, well, basically, we took FTX and removed the browser lag and removed SAM and any sort of custodial risk, right? Like, FTX wasn't that bad, dude. It was like a pretty good exchange, minus the whole, they got to front run me on everything. Like, the platform was pretty sick, right? Like, I mean, they had the good listings, they had good support for the most part. Like, I never really had that many issues. The big issue was Sam taking everyone's money and Sam front running everyone. Yeah. So if you, like, remove that, you get a pretty nice platform, right? And, like, by basically having that sort of self-custodial capability, like, you basically get, FTX minus SAM minus browser lag.
Yeah, definitely agree, man. 100%.
So, like, I know you've been a Solana maxi for a little while, but I see that there's kind of a resurgence there. So do you want to kind of walk me through why you're feeling the vibes with Solana recently?
Yeah, I've been a Solana bull for a while. Like it was like one of my best trades in 2021. I literally like bought the bottom and kind of like averaged up as it like kept trending up, and the entire time it was trending up.
So you did the Alex Weiss trading strategy.
I had people yelling at me like, oh, like why are you using Solana, like Solana, like blah blah blah, and it outperformed every other coin on the way up. But there's times in crypto where like technical analysis and FA, like fundamental analysis, line up. And it also lines up with sentiment being extremely negative, and that's currently where Solana, I think, is at. So that's why I kind of like
really interesting that you
coming.
say that.
I like kind of gave people like a heads up a few months ago. I was like, I'm probably going to be a Sol Maxi pretty soon, just because I think where it is technically, where it is fundamentally, and also just like the sentiment around the chain is like a good trifecta of things. I can speak a little bit more to each of those if you guys want me to soul shill over it.
Yeah, I mean, we maybe I mean, that wouldn't be bad. I think like it's pretty interesting because like I remember a few weeks ago I was like scrolling CoinGecko and I just looked at Solana for a second and I'm like, damn, no one's talked about this shit for like ages. Like sentiment is literally all time. Like I considered literally buying a bag just because of that, but instead my dumbass bought, I think, like Roll Bitcoin or something. Yeah, that didn't go too well. But I really should have just bought I bridged the Solana to buy it. So I really just should have stopped there. But I was like, ecosystem play. Smart shit. 200 IQ, Victor. Anyway, but yeah, we can touch a little bit, I think, like maybe on what you think, like, are you more interested in GMX type products right now? Or are you more interested in like the IDEX type products? Like, are you looking for, projects that are really trying to solve this problem with like high risk innovation? Or are you more interested in like the IDEXes and DYDXes of the world?
I think I'm more interested in the hybrid side, just because I think that's going to be pushing the boundaries of what the current state of DEXes can't do. And I think that's where the space is going to be trending towards in the next few years. That's where my focus is. But obviously it's a game of liquidity and like where you can push your trades on. So like it's two things. Like GMX, you can get wrecked on fees, but you can still trade like basically whatever you want on like Bitcoin and ETH.
Right.
As far as like if you need to put trades on and you're not using a centralized exchange. So it's a combination. But yeah, my focus is going to be on like which hybrids, like this kind of like the new crop of like DEXs. Like Uniswap has proved its use case in like last cycle. And when you have that in crypto, you typically have an innovation on top of the original that tends to be like better in some ways. So that's what I'm going to be looking for this upcoming cycle. Kind of similar. It's like the Solana trade. Like you had ETH prove its use case, and you have these other L1s, some of which are failing, some of which are going to be successful. But that trend of let me iterate on what in crypto has already been successful and what can I do better is a recurring thing in the space. And when all these new products come, you have the incumbents who are not expecting them to be successful. And it's literally always that way. So that's where a lot of the alpha lies in crypto.
Mm-hmm.
If you can figure out a thesis on the newer things before people have accepted them as the default, it's typically how you make the most money.
I'm spilling a lot of alpha. I appreciate it.
Try my best, bro.
That's interesting. So to switch it up a little bit, how was Miami?
Bro, Miami was crazy, dude. I landed, I like last minute booked my flight. I think I booked my flight like probably either Thursday or Friday. And I got there at like 11:30 Friday night and literally just hit everybody up who was there like, yo, what's the move? Ended up.
You're that guy, dude. You're the fucking guy that like lands right before anything happens. And then you're like, what's happening tonight?
Literally. People were like, wait, is Z here? Nah, Z's not here. And then I like started texting people like, wait, Z is here. But yeah, nah, we went to, where we go? We went to 11,
nice.
Went to space. Bro, I was in space till like 10, 11 a.m.
Jesus Christ.
That
sounds like a Miami
I don't know if any of you guys
sure.
follow me on IG, but I was on IG. Any of you guys follow me on IG. But yeah, dude, I was lit for literally the entire weekend.
Amazing. Do you have any alpha for anyone coming to the next conference? Like, what's the Miami alpha? Like, what's the things to keep in mind? Maybe like top 3 do's and don'ts.
Man, if I'm gonna be honest, Miami is not a conference go to for crypto alpha.
100%.
I did go to the Solana Hacker House last year, and that was actually good. I got to meet some cool people there, like a ton of smart people building stuff. So I would say that is worth it. The Hacker Houses are typically where the smarter people are. The actual conferences typically are just like that's where like the degenerates go, like just all to congregate in one place.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's some really good conferences though. Like I would say the research day. I went to a research day in New York, and it was like who was speaking there? Like a lot of the Cosmos people, like Celestia, I think was one of the ones leading it. And I don't know if you know DBA John Charb. He's like an ETH guy, but super smart on Twitter. But yeah, it was like a research focus day, and I probably learned more there than I had like every other crypto conference I've been to combined. So there's a duality. There's like the conferences people go to turn up, and there's like the research stuff people go to learn. And you kind of got to figure out the balance there, but it's definitely both crypto.
That makes sense. Yeah, usually the most of the alpha is at the after party though, because there's some alpha to be gained there.
Yeah, that's where the smart people are like faded, and they just like start talking. Yeah, no, that's true.
Anyway, so before I wrap it up here, I guess, is there any last bits of alpha you want to spill here for our 120, I guess, listeners?
I mean, my main thing in crypto, I harp on it all the time, is to be actively looking where people are not looking currently and what people are not really talking about. And I try to kind of like nudge people in that direction on Twitter. I usually don't do it very directly, but I try and like help people out there. I would say like a lot of innovation is going to come. Obviously, I think if you don't know what Fire Dance Fire Dancer is on Solana. That's one thing I say you should like look into and research. And then also, if you haven't really paid attention to the roll-up ecosystem in Cosmos and a lot of the L1s launching over there, stuff like Anoma, stuff like Dimension, stuff like Celestia, if you haven't been focusing on that, I think Cosmos is an interesting ecosystem because they've never really had DeFi, but they have all the infrastructure now. Like they have liquid staking now, they have like DeFi products now, they have a lot of other L1s launching outside of Terra, which like obviously collapsed a ton of the ecosystem in Cosmos because UST was the main stable, but now they have USDC and just a ton of other stuff built there. So it's kind of in a similar place to where Solana is, where the sentiment is on the ground floor, but the technical innovation has continued to be consistent.
Yeah,
so
teams that keep building
paying
is
attention to.
bullish.
Yeah, dude, the Cosmos guys are like super geniuses, but they don't care about telling people about what they're building. So it's kind of a funny situation. But yeah, I would say that's some main two places I would look at. I think AVAX is kind of interesting because they now have, I forget what it's called. It's called the Hyper. I think it's called the Hyper SDK. But essentially, they're building out an SDK comparable to Cosmos, where you'll be able to like implement your own VMs in AVAX on like whichever subnet you build out. And their BD, as you guys know, is obviously like super strong. They're very big on supporting the projects in their ecosystem. So I do think there's going to be probably some games that come out on AVAX that like are built on subnets that do well, and I just don't think people are really looking there either. That's probably
nice. That's a nice bag of alpha. It's not bad. That's a nice little rapid fire. I will.
Rapid fire. There you go.
I appreciate it. Before I let Anwar wrap up, I want to personally thank you for coming on, bro. It was awesome to have you on here. I think you spilled a lot of alpha, which is exactly what we wanted. Hopefully, the gang here learned a little bit about IDEX as well. And I'll let Anwar wrap up. But thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have fun.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, guys. I super appreciate that. That was really, really cool. So I hope everybody was happy with the amount of alpha spilled today. So thanks to everybody in the community that actually posted questions into the comments section. What we will do is we're actually going to go and just reply to you in the comments once we end the call. So NFTs, aka Popes, will still be handed out. So don't worry. We will be with you super soon. So yeah, thanks once again for joining us. So just a little bit of a call to action to finish. Watch out for the next Galaxy campaign. That's right, Galaxy, not Zeely. We'll still be using Zeely in the future, but we're going to give Galaxy a shot. So we have a big old prize pool there, just waiting for you guys to scoop up. So a lot of the quests will be already achieved by you guys. So that's literally free rewards waiting for you to collect them. So please look out for that. And of course, don't forget to pay attention to our comms. When launch, when moon, when whatever, it will all be in the comms. But for all the really good stuff, join us in 2 weeks for the next edition of Spill the Alpha. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.